if you've recovered, or I think it might take a bit longer to recover from that game, Mark. It's what a bizarre game of football.
I've had more excitement after the match than during it. Just popped to the toilet underneath here, and while my back was to the room, somebody came out of the cubicle and did a spectacular but totally silent vomit, which none of us at the urinal noticed. And then when we turned around, we had quite a shock at the state on the floor behind us. It was brilliant. Well, the game was quite good and all, but that was the best part.
What was that? What was the drink campaign? Know your limits.
No, you. I'll tell you what. Well, we pushed some limits today, I think, didn't we?
Oh, I feel a bit punch drunk thinking about being drunk. Actually, after today, it was what a bizarre first half and a bizarre game overall. Really, it was great to see both teams going at it. Both teams had chances and dominated each other. Really, leading at times. Both teams had good spells.
Yeah, it's one of those that you couldn't, throughout the game, you couldn't call which way it was going to go, and I don't think either team really deserved to win. I think a draw was a fair result. I think if you're watching this game as a neutral, what a game it was. It was fantastic from that sort of point of view. Frustrating from Wrexham's point of view, especially with that miss in the dying minutes of the game.
Yeah, it's always a shame. I think Bobby tried to take the leather off the ball, and possibly it could have just, a lesser touch may have just put it into the goal. But Yeovil we discussed it. Yeovil had a chance similar in the first half. Murphy then on obviously when he got his hat trick. But when it's the 90th minute, it means a lot more, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're being very fair. You refer back to the Murphy opportunity, but that was in the first half. I mean, heck, that was 92nd minute, Grant. If that goes in, never mind missed chances, we've won it. It's so frustrating that we didn't manage to take that chance, because we made so many chances. What was it, about 6 chances from the 88th minute on? It was crazy. So frustrating when you get the win.
Yeah, it is frustrating not to get the 3 points, but let's be positive. It was a good performance. Good to get some goals. And we know the defensive solidity will normally be there. There was a couple of times it cut open, but Rhys Murphy looked a decent handful. He leads that line. He links up well with the other players that were there, Smith and Hippolyte. But he looks a decent striker at this level from the ones we've seen over the years. But a win against Bromley, a draw against another top of the table table team. We're doing all right against we just need to put this run together. But that's 4 points in the league. Yes, we've had some interruptions with the cups and bits and bobs, but that's 4 performances really. If you take out the Scottish Cup that have been, I know a 1-0 loss against Rochdale, but we played very well, and that's a League One team. That's not a conference game. A draw at home against again a League One team, and then 2, a win and a draw. That's decent. A decent return.
We put in 3 goods back to back. Well, 4 if we don't count the Rangers game in a row. I mean, Rochdale both games, Bromley and this. You can see massive signs of improvement. It's just frustrating they've only got 1 win out of those 4.
Yeah, absolutely. The teams who have played have been up there, and it has been much improved performances, and Wrexham fans will be happy at that today. Although frustrated at the same time that we're now conceding the goals. We've been scoring goals today, but we've also conceded 3 as well, which is disappointing. I think the manner that we conceded them as well, looking back at it, Dean Keats will be really disappointed the way that, because they were simple goals. Although it was Rhys Murphy looks like a really good striker at this level, they were easy goals for him to score. He was in the right place, but Dean Keats will be frustrated looking back at that.
Yeah. Danny Dyer made a nice comment there. Mark, you're getting me very excited on the commentary. Keep up the work, guys. Thank you, Danny. I've got to say, it wasn't difficult to get excited by that match. It was just non-stop. It was really sort of edge of the seat all the way. You could have seen either sides, scoring 5 in that match.
Oh, quite easily it could have been, and there was some bizarre moments. The Langton, coming out of his box, getting the tackle in, and then them almost scoring from just what was a pass on target really. Lawler getting back, and there's plenty of other chances, and but it didn't look. After the first 10 minutes, it didn't look like I thought, oh dear, we could be onto a bit of a spanking here, because Yeovil looked, for me, one of the best adapted teams I've seen drop from League Two, and in their first season realise what National League football is a little bit. Have the height, have some giant centre halves in there, have some battle in midfield, and have some pace, power, and quick passing, quick movement up front. And I thought, oh dear, but no, Wrexham have got themselves organised. Dean's obviously had opportunity now to go onto the training pitch with players and do a little bit more than he had done in the early days. So yeah, that's a good performance for me. And I think the crown and the jewel in the crown was that Rutherford goal.
It was a stunning strike. He's done one earlier this season, didn't he? Against, I think, who was it against?
Ebbsfleet.
Ebbsfleet. And he killed it in from this side with his right foot. Similar, exactly the same sort of goal, to be honest, just with his left foot this time. And from when you watch it back on the highlights, the camera will be right behind it, and you'll just watch it bend in. Mark, you can't wait till you edit that, can you?
I can't.
The highlights are going to be like 25 minutes, aren't they?
Well, I don't know. That sounds stupid, this, right? There's my notes, right? Now, we've got a slight lag, so I hope you can see this. There's my notes. And a lot of them are in the last sort of 5 minutes because, to be honest with you, I was thinking about this. It was an odd game where it was really exciting, but there actually weren't that many goal-worthy moments, and those that were often going in. Maybe that's what made this such a crazy game, or exciting game. That a high percentage of chances actually were goals, which is unusual for us, of course. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be one worth watching for sure.
I'm kind of looking forward to seeing the GoPro Bobby Grant miss as well, just to clear in my head exactly what happened. Danny Dyer also asked what the attendance was.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find out on Twitter now. I've got it.
3583.
3583.
173 from Yeovil.
It's starting to creep back up a little bit. And
yeah, a bit better. 100 more than the Bromley game.
Yeah, and they would have brought less, I'm guessing, Bromley.
Bromley brought 60 less. So essentially, we've gained 40 fans. It's not so good now, is it, really, when we put it that way?
But those 40 fans would have gone away excited and tell their 40 mates.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. By the end of the season, we'll get up to 4,000 again.
Yeah, but no, I mean, we know it's been a difficult season. We know it's been a difficult patch, but you take the positives. It's nice to see some goals. It's nice to see some entertaining football, and again, another decent point against a decent positioned team.
I like Danny Dyer as well, saying there he heard the fans chanting for Keats. I think that's what he needs. I agree. I really strongly agree. I've been listening out for that as well, because you need to get that sense of unity back, don't we? And the fans unreservedly back in the team. And I'm glad to see that, the last 4 performances, knockdowns and Rangers, have been good. And it's important people see that and start to back this, because it does feel like we're turning things around.
Yeah, I think the fans can see that. I think they can see that it's improving. You can really feel them getting behind Dean Keats and his team today. I think even when we went behind, even early on, I think it was, in the first 5 minutes we went behind, you could feel the fans still sticking with the team, still getting behind them and encouraging them on. And, after the last few performances, you still look, I think we've moved up to 21st after today's results. I'm not worried about relegation. I don't think we'll go any higher than mid-table, but I certainly don't think we need to be worrying about relegation now. It looks much more improved.
I feel a bit mixed about it, in that I feel in terms of our performances, I'm not at all worried about relegation, because the way we're playing at the moment, we've dominated the League One team in both matches. We dictated the terms in both matches, but in both those games, how the shape of the game is determined by whether we had a low block or pressed. We ran those 2 games and made most of the chances, and then we've beaten the top of the table team, and then here drawn, and should have maybe beaten a team that, if they'd won in midweek rather than lost, would have been top coming here. So we're really putting in quality performances against good sides. But the thing that worries me is our circumstance. We are in the relegation zone, and if we have a little bad run, half the season's gone. We're in a position where we can't afford to have a rough little patch. So our situation scares me, because if we're in a position where we can't let much go wrong. But in terms of performance on the pitch, I mean, it's such a step up the last sort of 5 weeks. It's been really good to watch.
Yeah, just picking up on what Lee said, I think if we'd have gone behind 10 weeks ago, the tide would have turned. It would have been a lot of negativity. And today it was completely different. The vibe was there. The vibe was backing the players. 4 points in our last 2 league games. We need to continue that trend. I agree. We need to get out of that relegation. I agree with Lee that I don't think we're a relegation team, but where we are in the relegation zone. So we need to address that. And I think Dean Keats has brought 3 players in this week. One, unfortunately, Tyler Reid got injured, so hopefully he's all right with the curse of the Wrexham right back. It's 2 lonely right backs, because Horsfield was looking at the business at that position for us, I thought, and I mean it's nice to have, Carrington's very, very solid, and perhaps there's a case for just naming him as the starting fullback at times. But Horsfield was unlucky. Tyler Reid unlucky. Amari Patrick, we discussed, came on at the right time of the game for me, which allowed him to use his pace and be direct, and he made a difference. He worried Yeovil. Whether he can do that at the start when teams are a little bit more disciplined and the shape's there, it'd be interesting. But he looks a useful addition. And then we haven't. And Kieran Kennedy, we sort of, it's like he'd never been away. It's a 6-month injury and he's come back, sort of thing, almost the type thing.
I see Reece, GTR, and Danny are both agreeing there about the sense of togetherness that the team has had. And then Danny saying, "Did my man Young get man of the match?" Now then, sponsors man of the match is Paul Rutherford. But there's only one man of the match call that matters, and a funny feeling that it's time to turn to Lee and find out.
Do you know, I thought I got away with this.
Really?
I thought you completely forgot about this.
I've got a name. I think about half the team probably were contenders.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm not going to name it. I'm just going to say the one I'm thinking of, and then you can.
No, that's not how it works. You get the final decision.
Oh,
we can name names.
Yeah, we can prod you and pressure you
and put in different. Give us your top 3, or if you've got a top 3 or top 2 at least, and then we'll discuss that.
I think Kieran Kennedy for 1.
Yeah, do well,
for me.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, good shout.
Luke Summerfield.
Yeah, he was good, wasn't he?
Yes, he was very good. No, for me, I think Kieran Kennedy's the one that stood out for me. I think to come on when he did and slot in at right back. As a centre back, you expect someone to come in at right back or left back and stay in that position. But he was doing the job of what Reid was doing beforehand, and going up and down the pitch and working hard, and he looked solid for me.
There was a game last season with Kennedy doing that sort of thing. I'm trying to remember what it was, where we played him at right back, and he's not a sort of natural overlapping right back. He's a centre back, isn't he? Really, who can play at right back and will be a defensive right back. But it was a game where he just went charging through challenges. I'm trying to find it on here. Just kept running through challenges, and he was really. I think it might have been Maidstone at home, the last game that we won. He just kept running through tackles. There was no finesse about it, but just strength and aggression and desire, just getting him through players. And he did it a bit today, didn't he? He tried to take the game to them because there was a lot of space on the flanks. Yeovil left because of their narrow shape, and maybe Reid's more suited to getting up like that. But he tried to again and again and again, and he made some good defensive interventions, didn't he? He did do well. So fair play, good chap.
He did. I can see why the sponsors give Rutherford man of the match as well. I thought obviously his goal was fantastic, but he was working hard as well. And we were coming into the last 5 minutes of the game, and I said about putting Harris on for pace, and then the ball came to Rutherford in the last sort of few minutes of the game, and he still had pace about him. He was still getting at players. So he impressed me as well today. Always working hard.
Yeah, I enjoyed Summerfield because I felt that he quickly spotted the potential for switching things out, and he used the ball well going forward. He fought hard, but he made some good release passes when we were under pressure and started breakaways. And Danny Dyer mentions Luke Young. Young again was, I've got to be honest, there was a point in the second half where I just watched him again doing what Young does. Great energy, good pace, hoovering the ball up, using it well, and thinking, I'd personally maybe go Summerfield for this match. But Luke Young is setting up a good lead for me as player of the season. Yeah,
I mean, I've championed Luke Young's case last year, perhaps not utilised as much, but this year I think he's been our standout player, or one of the standout players. And I particularly like him in this new holding role, that's sort of not holding role, but he's like the pivot in front of the defence. He can defend and tackle, but it allows him space, and you just almost expect now of Luke Young, so it's doesn't stand out as much when he's doing it, which is unfortunate because that's why he doesn't get. But I think Dean Keats may or may not have known much about Luke Young coming into him, but I think he'll quickly realise he's the type of player to potentially build his revolution from. I believe he could probably play at the next level easily. I think he could be a League Two player and a dominant player in this league, which we've got to get out first.
Yeah.
But
I think Danny agrees with you because he just called him our very own Stephen Gerrard, having previously just written Young 3 times as a message on its own. Fair play. He's a good bloke.
Yeah, hopefully he doesn't slip over though when we try and get the title.
Oh, don't start.
I'm not going with the Liverpool loving. I'm not going with the Liverpool loving. Sorry.
Josh Hodgson. Oh, this is beautiful, isn't it? I was devastated. I went to get a tray of chips as soon as I got down. Rutherford scored, and I heard it was a screamer. Now tap in, mate. Don't worry about it. Don't even bother looking at the highlights. He was an inch out. Just rolled it over the. Yeah, it was a screamer. Okay, left foot and all.
I don't believe we should play Young and Summerfield. They've done this. They're too similar, and the only one can play a good game. The other seems dreadful. I disagree. I think they both. I think today Young went about his task, and Summerfield. You know, you're sort of you're championing him for the man of the match, which he didn't get. Kennedy did, but he was in the reckoning. I agree with Josh though that they are similar type of players, and I think when we played with, say, a Barton at the holding midfielder role, and you had Young and Summerfield on the two central midfield roles, didn't quite work for me. But I think now Young's playing this more sort of the quarterback role, I suppose, and mopping up in front of the defence and knocking the passes and having the time and energy to run in there. I think they do complement each other quite well.
I've never had that problem. I know a few people have had the issue of them, playing together. I never really thought that. I agree totally, Josh, that until Keats came in, we were having problems in midfield. But the way I saw it was that both Summerfield and Young were playing well, but because we were playing 4-2-3-1, we were just outnumbered in midfield. So they'd play well, but we'd still get overrun. And Keats has come in and immediately put a defensive midfielder in behind, as you say, James. And as a result, we just look solider in midfield.
Yeah.
But I think they're both having decent seasons. And I don't know. What do you think, Lee? I think they can play together. Myself, I'm not sure they're that similar in some ways. I don't know.
I think they can play together. I think I'd prefer to see them play in the same sort of position, as in not one behind the other. I'd like to see them alongside each other, with a real defensive midfielder there that comes in. Like we thought maybe the Barton would be. In that, just sitting in front of that defence, breaking up some of the... I know all three of them do it well. Akilwright did well today in there as well and battled well. But I'd just like to see it. And it would give freedom for Luke Young and Summerfield to both push forward a bit more and just have that real defensive-minded midfielder that just sits and breaks up that play in front of Pearson and Lawler.
Well, just to confirm, we are at home against Fylde, who've had a good win today, obviously under new management like ourselves. There's a comment there, missed who said it because it's just gone off the screen, but we always seem to, we've never got a good record against Fylde. A couple of 0-0 draws is our best sort of, or certainly draws I think are our best sort of results. Yeah. And some non-memorable 0-0s. But I think, they're in form coming off, but so are we. But it is a more difficult task than playing, say, Fylde a couple of weeks ago, and it's an important game. Going back to that relegation position, points dropped against a team that are close to you were a lot more damaging than gaining points. That would make a big statement if we could get a result there.
I see a Tar Dude was saying a while ago, where is it?
I think that was it. It might have been him that said it, I think.
Controversial one, I'm going to address it though. Is Jay Harris to return? I say controversial because, we're not going to get sort of gossip about transfers. Well, I will gossip about transfers. But what I would definitely say is that with our finances anyway, we're not in a position to break the bank. But you never know whether... Macclesfield are in a tricky situation at the moment. Well, Keats may well look for bargain locations, if you like, for players.
Up to you, Lee.
I'd love to see Jay Harris back in the team. I really would. Obviously he's been away for a few years, hasn't he? And he's done really well with Tranmere at this level. And then again in League Two, he was performing for them throughout, I believe, last season. I don't know. What's your opinion on it?
My opinion is Jay Harris is one of my favourite players we've had in non-league days, if not my favourite. I love a battling midfielder. That's, I don't know. Some people like strikers and stuff. I love it.
I like goalkeepers, me.
I love small, angry midfielders that drive tackles and like Dennis Wise types and that sort of annoying players.
I think you've gone a bit too far in that direction with
maybe.
Dennis Wise.
That probably explains why I was mentioned the Gerrard slip with the Dennis Wise dropping name in there, but never mind. Jay Harris for me, I think, is obviously a few years older than when he left us. We we didn't probably see the best of the Jay Harris in that final season of him for various reasons. Perhaps Keats can also attest to some of that. But he went on to Tranmere, is a very solid midfielder at this level, has just won League Two playoffs with Tranmere and was played a lot, certainly in those playoffs and those final games. And whilst we can't break the bank, I agree, we can at least pay wages. So there's is there a need for a competitive midfielder? Akil Wright's that sort of role. Jay Harris is a much more experienced version of Akil Wright, so possibly not fair to completely comparison. But I think if you put Harris, Young, and Summerfield into a midfield, I think it's possibly lacking the creativity that we had in the days of Keats, Harris, and Fowler, etc. But it's not, apart from not having the greatest of height, which Wrexham seem to have liked to play in midfield. Although midfield height seems to have disappeared out of the need in the in National League of recent years. It's much more centre halves bounce it back into different centre halves. The midfield does get bypassed quite a bit. So perhaps if we can get it on end and play, I think that sort of team would work.
Yeah, we have got good options in midfield, haven't we? I mean, as Josh is saying there again, he thought Akil was solid today. But we've got that physicality. We've got players who can fill in midfield. I think the problem with Keats, he needs depth in his squad, doesn't he? So he needs to find more bodies, and he's got them. That's why he's brought 3 players in a week, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And he's not going to come cheap, Jay Harris. And in terms of his wages, I don't know what the situation is at Macclesfield. We're bringing him in transfer fees and things like that. But I think if we've got money there to spend on wages, I think we still need to be. Although we scored 3 goals today, I think a striker is still somewhere we need to be looking to improve.
Oh yeah, massively.
And spend those.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what sort of wages he'd be on.
I don't know. I mean, we're not privy to what wages are people on, and you speculate. I'm sure there's things in press, and I would imagine we've got one of the largest squads that we've had in recent years, and that's pre Dean Keats. That's Hughes brought in a lot of players and had a larger squad, so I'd imagine we've spent quite a bit of our budget, and to release budget is getting players off the books, but I think we're up to 28 players now in the first team squad. That's you're getting on for Barry Fry levels of squad depth here. So I would imagine there's going to be movement back and two, but I'd imagine movement needs to go out perhaps to free up more funds to bring players in, because if you could afford to pay everyone, you're also going to get a situation where players aren't in the team. Does that bring morale down? Does that bring people knocking on the door? Does that, counterintuitive to what you're trying to achieve?
There's going to be a lot of players like that. Like you say, it is a big squad. And when you've got some of the players that haven't even featured on the bench in recent weeks in the league games, I think they are going to be knocking on Keats' door, and I think they'll be looking for moves out of the club, because I don't think... You look at that starting 11 today and you look at the players that have missed out, I don't think they're going to get back in this team now. So they are going to be looking for moves elsewhere, and like you say, that could free money up to bring better players in. Not as many players that go out, but bring a smaller amount in that would improve this squad.
Just been asked here, are we going to see Hooper again? Is he injured or wanting out, or both? Hooper's very special but evidently made of glass. Hooper, too many injuries, sorry to go. Several comments there on Hooper. Hooper to me is the ideal type of striker that you want. I was very excited when we got him. He's got pace, he bullies defenders, he's got something about him, and he scores goals. We haven't had Hooper in our side on a good run or for any length of time. As far as I know, he's injured. When we were at Rangers last week, he had a boot, one of the plastic boots on his foot, the medical support boots. So I would assume he's injured. I don't know if this is connected to the original injuries or not. We're not privy to the medical information. And as for if he's wants out or what the question, I don't know. He seems quite happy when I've seen him around. In terms of he's chatty. If you bump into him around and about the ground, and I do think whatever happens, we need a out and out striker to lead that line. Bobby Grant's doing a good job, but he needs to be that support player for that front line rather than the actual striker, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair point. It's definitely the case. We need a striker, whoever it is. I'm in a I'll go there mood as well, because Danny Dyer threw another cheeky one out, which was Andy Cook. I should just point out, and yes, it's my understanding that if Keats hadn't gone to Walsall, Cook would have played for us the next season. Yeah, absolutely correct. It is worth pointing out, though, that since scoring 2 goals off the bench against Forest Green, that was in mid-October, Cook has started every game except for the EFL Cup. So that's 6 games in a row, including the Wrexham fantasy transfer derby against Macclesfield, which Harris also played in. I love that idea. But I think it's a long way off fruition, I'm afraid.
I'd have loved Andy Cook. He was the type of striker I've always gone on and banged on about. But yeah, I think I believe he wasn't playing at Mansfield because he was injured and getting back to fitness. He's got back to fitness. He scored a couple of goals, and like you said, he's now in the side. So very unlikely that that's going to be a target. Whether there was a possibility of it before that, who knows? I mean, unfortunately for Dean Keats, he's always going to be linked with Andy Cook. If
it's not unfortunate.
No, as in it's always going to be talked about. It's always going to be talked about, isn't it? But you know, Andy Cook will be. I don't know how long he's under contract for there, but he may be available at some point in time.
Yeah, we should have a look on Football Manager.
Yeah,
find out how long he's got.
But I think what Dean Keats has gone away with and gone to Walsall. Walsall were a team without the biggest budget, and he would have had to use his knowledge of non-league, use his knowledge of League Two, when he was scouting players and looking for players. Now, yes, it didn't work out, and some of the players he took there worked for a little bit and didn't work. But what I'm saying is he's got a bigger scouting network than he had when he was here. So, you know, he's targeting the right type of players for me. Whether he can always bring them in, you know, people sometimes say, well, which transfers has he brought in? You know, you look at Simon Ainge. Well, if Simon Ainge was the only player that was available of that type of bulldozer striker that we thought we needed at the time, then sometimes you know in the January transfer you are stuck with what you are. Dean Keats never got that summer to build his midfield and defence that he wanted because he moved on. So, you know, perhaps we might see it this summer, but we've got to ensure where we are in the league first.
Yeah, David Forrester saying, "Have you lads heard of any names being linked forward-wise?"
Andy Cook by Kevin H just above you on the comments.
I think it's fair to say, Lee, that Keats plays his cards very close to his chest. You know, the signings that came in midweek came pretty much out of the blue, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. So whether he's got something up his sleeve in terms of a striker, I don't know. You go back to Hooper. I mean, you don't really want to think about his attitude just yet. When we saw him at the Rangers game last week, with something on his foot, didn't we? And you know, we hope that he can get over that injury and have the time he needs once that injury is sorted to come back into the team and start building up the minutes, and still keep faith that he could be the striker to do it for us. But you know, it is down to that attitude again. Whether I don't know anything about his attitude, to be honest, whether it's there or not, to want to play for Wrexham or to want to move away.
No, I mean the only transfer we sort of have a sniff of was the Amari Patrick one, because he'd been training with the team. So you know, if you're down 9 acres or down the gym, you will see these players, and you know, so that's the only one. The other two right out of the blue, and Kieran Kennedy to me is a positive signing. I was well, not trying to think of the right word, but I was disappointed we didn't get him in the summer. I think he was a solid centre half and a good addition. I mean, I'd love Brad Walker back here in that midfield, but he's on the bench for Shrewsbury. He's had a couple of look-ins in the EFL and the various other cups and stuff like that. And I think he's a young player that Sam Ricketts identified and brought in and wanted to develop anyway. So, you know, there's always options, and it doesn't always have to be players that have always played for us. I mean, there's different players. We get to see 11 or 14 different players most weeks against us in different teams, and there's players there. Reece Murphy was somewhere. I don't know where he was previously. But he looks a striker. So there are players out there that we might not be throwing the names on, and you know, we might. Some teams have big budgets, some teams don't. Players cost money, and I'm guessing strikers cost the most.
Well, Kev H is bewildering me with his Harris play. There's been too many confusing Harrises brought up. He's saying about swapping Mark Harris, but as he's on loan and for the season, you can't do that. Danny Dyer reckons Harry Kane should come in. Kev reckons Michael Kane should come in. I don't know about that, but I've got a very good I've not got a very good Michael Caine accent. Can I continue the whole thing now, trying to do a bad Michael Caine impersonation as all middle-aged men think they can?
I prefer you to carry on trying to do the whole thing in a good Michael Caine accent.
That was harsh, wasn't it?
Well, come on.
If you're not careful, I'm going to fall back on Sean Connery. The other thing all middle-aged men think.
Go for Sean Connery.
Okay. Right. Sean.
One English only.
Yes. So, Scaramanga, we meet at last.
That's much better than your Michael Caine one.
Thank you. And Danny Rice, Danny Dyer's mentioning as well. I had something to say about it, and I forgot what it was because I started being stupid. I can't remember what it was. It was
Danny Wright would cause issues for other teams and would allow other players to come in.
He's not coming here.
Yeah, he's a lot older, and I think he's fairly settled at Solihull playing that type of football.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Keats, I suppose out of the Wrexham managers I've seen, I know Morel best, but I know Keats' methods best. My son was his analyst the first time he was here, and I understand how he works. And I promise that Keats has loads of names lined up. There's no question. He's looking at a lot of different players. He's seeing what deals he can do. There's no question about that. I really like the fact that he does keep his cards close to his chest. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm moaning about a club legend, but when Brian Flynn was manager, we always knew the players we were after. It was always public knowledge. And he'd talk about play. Oh, yeah, we're hoping to bring so-and-so in next week. And all it did was he just felt so disappointed when they fell through, which they often did. You don't want to make it public anyway, because then clubs know they're available and they jump in. But Keats is, I think he's quiet.
He is quiet, but I think he's also perhaps learned that because there's certainly times when he's not named, but he's hinted, oh yeah, there'll be a player in the building this week, and I think he got some criticism for that, and that's perhaps how he's, that's mistakes maybe as a rookie manager that he's perhaps learned from. But I agree.
But he's never named.
No, he's never named it, and I 100% agree. Yeah. They're very much like ducks. Under the whole team underneath the water, the legs are going. There is a lot of planning going on, and there is a lot of option. They're definitely after people, but it's whether you can get them or not.
I've got to say though that as well, I've sympathy for managers sometimes with that sort of situation, because you get this, and I've got to say BBC Wales always do this. I guess because they don't have a dedicated Wrexham reporter, so they get a lot of report. Oh, I'm going to sound bad now. They get a lot of people who come who don't watch the team, and so they ask generic questions. And the classic one always is, "Are you going to buy anyone this week?"
Yeah.
And so, that's the thing, isn't it? A manager will then respond to the question they're asked, and then it often can be framed as so-and-so has spoken out on this. They weren't going to say anything except they were asked that question, so they felt they had to answer it.
It was a bit like away at Woking, I believe it was, and the BBC London guy had obviously read all the fans' reviews, done his homework, seen Dean Keats' name linked, and went, so Dean Keats is the new manager, and took a chance on it.
Yeah, that's it.
Now,
yeah.
At the time, genuinely, no managers, that no one had been interviewed.
Yeah.
But everyone just jumped on that he knew. And it's just sort of
I believe that was carried by Sky Sports, wasn't it, as an announcement?
And then it just builds up and builds up, and you're just like, well, no one's actually been interviewed at that time. And do you know what I mean? It's sort of, football can go, especially at this level, names get linked and then they become, look at the betting when on previous managers and stuff like that. Someone mentioned Sol Campbell or whatever, and he became favourite at one point a couple of years ago, didn't he? And then there was other random names and bits and bobs. You're like, where did these get from? But all they're doing is picking it up from fans' columns, Twitter, and bits and bobs, and running with it, because no one really knows at this level. It's difficult. It's difficult to know. Whereas at the Premiership level, everything's very much scrutinised. People are followed, and it's difficult.
Yeah,
keeps it interesting.
Oh, it certainly does. Danny Dyer says that my impersonation sounded more like Chris Eubank. Well, funnily enough, he's also in my wheelhouse. Pugilism is a violent sport, etc. Oh, have you seen the clip of him introducing it's cruel. Top the Pops.
No, I haven't. I'm obviously going to go to YouTube or Google straight away.
You genuinely should. It's beautiful because he's going through the charts, and as we know, the letter S was a challenge for the poor bloke, and at number 6 was Cecilia by Suggs. It's something.
Danny Dye just saying we should have kept Stuart Bevan. I'm going to disagree on this. I think Stuart Bevan was a great player for us in what he did in Keats' system, but I don't see him being... He's a workhorse, but you've got Rutherford doing the same job. Now, Stuart Bevan won a lot of headers, but he wasn't a goal scorer, and I think this team needs someone that's capable of scoring the goals, because you've got Grant and Rutherford that are working hard and doing what Stuart Bevan did and does. And Grant's already got more goals doing it. So, yeah, I think Stuart Bevan was a great pro, and he brought a lot, but it was not the answer. He needed a partner, Stuart Bevan, for me.
I can see two sides to this. I don't know what you think, Lee. That definitely we know that there was a lack of goals, and he left because he was a striker who didn't score goals, as you say. I mean, that's perfectly logical. We're trying to address that issue. But on the other hand, if you don't replace somebody with somebody better, you might as well have kept him. And I don't think we did replace him with someone better, except Hooper, who wasn't kept fit.
Yeah, that was the thing. I think they did it for Hooper, didn't they? They brought him in and thought that he was the replacement for Bevan. Bevan did everything you wanted as a striker, but put the ball in the back of the net. You know, he made chances, he won headers, he battled hard. Yeah, I think he only played like 60, 65 minutes of each game. He was always substituted around that mark. But it was just the goals. It was the lack of goals that he had, and the reason we got rid of him, I guess, was to bring in another striker that we thought would do that and get the goals, and that was Hooper. But unfortunately, it's not.
I think Keats, if he inherited Bevan, would use him.
Oh, I think he would, but then
up to a point.
At whose expense?
Okay,
probably Rutherford's or Grant's.
Yeah,
and then
Tollitt's perhaps. I don't know.
Or Tollitt perhaps. But they've got a very samey samey front three if you go in Bevan, Grant, and Rutherford.
There's not a lot of pace in that.
No.
If you take out a player like Tollitt, you don't see Grant you see Rutherford a little bit, but not Grant running at players, not like Tollitt does.
That was my issue. I was a big fan of Stuart Bevan. I thought for the size he was, you weren't expecting to. He won a lot. He caused so much problems. He was crying out for some help, and I think he'd have been a great foil for someone. But I failed to see how Stuart Bevan gets in this lineup and improves it without sacrificing others that do the same job.
But Keats has inherited a squad where I think he's now had a chance to look at it, and there's clearly quite a few players that he doesn't particularly trust, he wouldn't use.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless he absolutely has to.
And Bevan would be one he'd trust.
He'd trust him.
Yeah,
he would. He wouldn't look at the bench and think, "Oh, there's nothing I can turn to here." He would be, "I've got Bevan." Here's a question: would you have kept Holroyd?
Ooh, I think he would. Wasn't Holroyd brought in by Keats?
Yep.
I
think I would have kept Holroyd, actually. I don't mean with hindsight, because he's kept fit and scored goals for Chorley, but as long as his medical side was looking all right.
Yeah, Chris Holroyd was a fit lad. He kept himself in a good condition. I'd have kept Chris Holroyd. Again, he probably came here, though, as a prime-ish signing. I'd imagine he was on a decent wage. His goals return and pitch minutes return last year would possibly have not warranted a second contract. Although you'd argue that he would be a better player than some of the strikers that are in our squad and would get ahead. I think he'd certainly be here if Keats was in charge of it. However, Hughes was here and Hughes didn't utilise him in that game, so it's a difficult one, isn't it? Holroyd adds to this squad, the current squad.
He had a lot of injuries last year, Holroyd. Now, I totally agree he didn't have a good season, but he did have quite a lot of disruptive injuries. And then the season before, he's got into double figures despite the fact he's played most of the season out wide in a 4-4-2. So
I think Keats would have kept him here, and I think when he came to the club, he came as a striker, didn't he?
Yeah.
But he was often played out on, I believe it was out on the left.
Left, yeah.
And it could have been an opportunity this season to actually have played through the middle, moving Grant either to the left or the right, freeing up that position for Holroyd as an actual striker. So, and he's scored a fair few goals at Chorley as well. I'm not sure where he's playing.
He came here as a striker, but he was actually playing out wide for Macclesfield. So I think he sort of does himself his own
injustice in a three.
But I think that was the idea. It was Bowden, Holroyd, and McCrath, wasn't it? McCrath would have been on the right, Holroyd on the left, and Bowden. That was Dean's re-envision of that Macclesfield trio that did score a lot of goals and did create chances. It was just a few years later down the line, and it never quite paid off for Wrexham fans.
Danny Dare said he was too interested in doing his hair. But what hair? What hair? The Wrexham Wolfman. All the marketing opportunities that we squandered there. I feel we should quickly wrap a couple more up and go, because it's so cold that my nose is dripping. Fortunately, the camera's not good enough to quite point it out in HD, but that's not right. Leadston Manny from Tardood is that? Well, we have no Leadston Manny. We don't know, sadly, how long it would be before he comes back, do we?
No, and I mean I'm no medical expert, but he's been over 12 months now, 14 months probably. Was it September-ish? It was around the bank holiday, wasn't it? At Solihull.
Didn't he play like one-off game in November?
Yeah,
against
yeah,
Leeds?
yeah.
So effectively no football for at least 12 months. He's an older player, unfortunately. I hope he can come back, and it's a knee injury, but obviously it's a serious one. So hopefully he can get back in, but it's going to be a long road to get to fitness. From that injury, you've seen, look at Crichton when he had, bits and bobs when he had a knee injury, had to retire. Hopefully we see Manny Smith back. Although Jake Lawler, I think, has cemented that place now as Sean Pearson centre half at the moment. He's come in and done. I think he's been an under the radar, underrated player that's possibly come in and
he's very good today. I thought Lawler
just gone about his business.
David Forrester saying, I feel better with Keats over Hughes, whether tactically or bringing players in. Reluctant because I feel sorry for Hughes, but I have to completely agree with that. And already Keats' strike rate is better than Hughes in the transfer market, I've got to say.
Yeah, I think Hughes made some naive mistakes, unfortunately, and he did well when he came in after Graham Barrow, and not through the kitchen sink at it, but made some positive changes that worked. And sometimes in football you get a bit of luck, and we got some good results. I think he scored, was it something like 30 odd points he got in his games in charge, of something like 2 points a game, which is what you want to really be up there. So I think he deserved the chance, but I think there's some perhaps naive transfer, or ones that were sold that this is going to be the dream, and it wasn't actually. In reality, the players were as advertised.
Yeah, that's someone's where it went wrong from, wasn't it, really? But bless him. Danny Dyer's got a contract offer. He said, tell Keats to call me, happy with a 2-year deal. Can't promise goals, but can promise a fight, work hard, get stuck in, wear the badge of pride. Okay, we'll pass your details along, Danny, don't worry. It's Danny Dyer from the East Enders, isn't it? Right, we'll tell him it's you. And Joe's Videos says hi, so let's all say hi to Joe's Videos.
Hi, Joe's Videos.
Hi. Right, and on that bombshell, should we go home? Because I'm very cold.
Yeah.
I'm really cold.
Well,
I've got my sulky, pouty bottom lip on there.
Thank you, as always, for joining us.
Well, you're welcome, James, and thanks to everyone who was watching as well.
Thank you to everyone at home for listening, or on the mobiles, or in the pub, or certainly a warmer place than we are. I've been James Harrison, joined by Lee Milford and Mark Griffiths. And we'll see you on the next one with the Wrexham AFC media team.
Ta-ra.
If I can find my mouse to go there.
Careless pet owner.